Thanks for joining us. My name is Carrie Dorsky. I am the operations coordinator at the NWTC Artisan and Business Center. This is our monthly speaker series called An Artist Journey. We do this speaker series from September to May every year on the third Tuesday of each month. And I have the pleasure of getting to schedule the speakers. So the way I look at those 9 months is I like to talk to 3 artists about their story. I like to talk to 3 organizations that somehow serve artists. And I like to cover 3 business topics for artists. So split it up, keep that kind of entrepreneurial focus. But I'll be real honest, speaking with the artist specifically is my absolute favorite. I was in my office today speaking with my boss, Jan, who is not with us tonight, but she actually dreamed up this program, so she gets as excited as I do. But I was making my one Post-it of questions, and I was getting more and more excited about it. And I was like, oh, I'm so excited to talk to Mel tonight. So,
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll turn it over to you. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Oh, sure. I am Mel Kolstad. I live in Fond du Lac. I am a full-time artist, and I have been one for almost 14 years, which blows my mind. The years roll on and you just don't even think about it, right? But yeah, I was thinking that it's been 14 years. And I'm basically mainly a printmaker, but I do a lot of collage as well. So that's the main gist of my work every day.
Perfect. So just a housekeeping thing. So Rachel, you're the only one live with us tonight, so feel free to unmute and ask questions as you see fit. Otherwise, feel free to drop questions in the chat and I will read them, whatever you are comfortable with. And let's keep it really casual and fun and just
absolutely
hang out, right? Get to know everybody. Mel and I have been on camera for a little bit, making sure technology is up and running. And I said, I'm trying not to ask you any questions because I want to wait to do that when we're recording and when we have people with us. So my first question for you is, how did you get started? How did you become an artist? Give us the background.
I did not go to school. I'm a self-taught artist. I actually went to, you're headquartered in Green Bay. I went to UWGB.
Me too.
Love UWGB. And that was a very, very long time ago. Probably longer than some of the people who are watching this have been alive. But I was a communications major and I always loved art, but had never thought I was good at it or whatever. So was kind of bad at it and didn't really like deadlines in high school. So that was not a thing. I wasn't an art kid at all. And in college too, I was on a communications track and did radio, TV, film for it was called communication processes at the time. And then, but I always liked it. And I was always doing like embroidery, and I was part of the Embroiderers Guild when I was in my 20s and 30s. And I loved that. I made my own designs. So you start with charts and stuff, and then you're like, that's just boring. I need to do my own thing. But I never thought of it as being like artistic. It was just a craft that I liked. And so, and I was knitting a lot. And in 2006, I was working at the Reporter, which is our newspaper here in town, or was, and now it's headquartered elsewhere. But I had a lunch break and I went to our news depot called Book World, which doesn't exist anymore, but they had really great magazines. And one of them was called Cloth, Paper, Scissors. And I checked it out, and they kept talking about this ATC thing. And I was like, but they never said what it stood for. So I was like, okay, what is this? But I was intrigued enough to like find out. So, this is 2006. So really the internet had only been around for like 10 years at this point. So I'm like checking Google or whatever it was at that point. And I found out they were artist trading cards, and they're 2.5 by 3.5 inches, which is totally my size. I love working small. And I started doing collage with them, and that exploded my world. That's what I did every single night after work. And I realized I absolutely loved it, and I may be kind of good at it. And so I started applying to like tiny shows, international shows, and had an enormous Flickr friendship with people. That's how old I am. And because this was pre-Facebook, really. And met the coolest people. And then I met my friend Carolyn, who was doing live trades with these artist trading cards. And then I met a whole bunch. That's in Milwaukee, still exists to this day. We're going into year 18 with it. And I haven't been able to do it recently, but I was one of the inaugural people of that group. And I mean, it opened up my world. I met a ton of artists that way. And then more calls for art came. And I mean, it literally, I owe my art career to artist trading cards. That's how I got started.
So cool.
I mean, it's just amazing that this democratic with a small d, right? This inclusive, fun, anyone can do this kind of art form that started in Switzerland in 1996. So it's only been around for 27 years. And I'd love to know how many people got started in art because of those. I bet you a lot. Because there was no stake, there was no, no skin in the game.
Yeah.
There was no pressure. It was the perfect way to get into art because it's so inclusive that you never, like, everyone can do artist trading cards. Like, no one is excluded from this. It's not a juried thing at all, right? So I mean, I could spend the entire hour talking about that, but I won't.
You just have like stacks of them.
I have made over 1,100 cards. Well, I mean, I don't have them anymore because I traded them all. So I have binders full, like 1,100 little trading cards from other people all around the world, because I actually started doing it with international swaps. So they're from every corner of the globe, and I love that. It's like having pen pals.
A local organization called Sage in Green Bay
Yes.
was doing artist trading cards
Sage
for a while, and I have a few stacks from a few of the trades we did, and it was so fun to like. So my paintings are behind me. They're big. I work big. And to work on something that small and focus was so fun. I think I did, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 rounds of it. But yeah.
It was very addictive for me. And I did a TEDx talk in 2018, and I talked all about my artist trading card experience. And I kind of likened it to being in love, because it was like, it like consumed my life. And I got into it right around the time my husband and I got married, and for our wedding present, he actually built me a studio in our basement. And so he would play video games in our little rec room, and I could see him, but I was in the studio every night from like 5:30 until 10 o'clock at night. It was so great.
I love that. That's one of my favorite things about artists, is like what makes them tick, or what that like obsession, or like if they can't even articulate it, they're just like, I am wholly consumed by this, and like need to be making this thing. I love that. I think that's the most interesting part about artists.
Oh yeah, and if you stick with it, it's amazing where it can take you. Like I never in a million years, if I would have gone to a soothsayer 25 years ago and they would have said, oh yeah, you're going to be a full-time artist for most of your life, I'd be like, yeah,
all right,
no, you're wrong, and I don't believe in you anymore.
So you collage, and you dry point, and a little watercolor.
Yes.
For maybe those who don't know what dry point is, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. It is a printmaking method that I actually just learned about 7 years ago. I took a class at Richardson School of Art and Gallery in Kimberly, learned from Heather Etzel, who's an amazing printmaker herself. And the way she taught was so wonderful because she was extremely thorough in her teaching. So I could start immediately on it, which I love. I love it when people are so direct with their teaching, and you can get hands-on right away. So I work on plexiglass, but you can also work on copper or zinc. I have printmaking friends who only do the metal ones, but I like plexiglass because I can actually hold it up to the light and see how dirty it is while I'm scraping. So you etch into that plexiglass or copper or zinc, and you scrape ink into those lines when you're done. But then you wipe the top of the plate clean. So the only ink that's on this plate is the stuff in those incised lines. And then you take wet paper damp paper, you like, dampen it with a towel or whatever. And you put the plate on the wet paper and you run it through a press. And a lot of times you really do have to have an etching press because you need a ton of pressure for that to go through. Rachel knows what I'm talking about because she does it too. But that was the fascinating part because I was doing a lot of lino cut, which is the exact opposite of intaglio printmaking. And I was captivated. I wish I could say I was captivated right away. I was not. I thought, oh, this is fun, and maybe I'll do it at some point. And then I needed to get a print done very quickly. And I knew there was no way I could carve like you do with lino cut. There's no way I could carve a block for what my sister wanted to do for a fundraiser for my niece. She wanted a skier out of focus and in like a 6x6. And I'm like, and she's like, oh, and can you have it done in 3 days? And I'm like, yeah, no, I don't know how I'm going to do this because we were on our way to Minnesota. I did it. I literally did this dry point plate in the car on the way to Minnesota because I could, right? Because I had a lap and then I had like a big piece of wood on top of that. And then I just, it was big enough where I could just scratch and there wasn't a lot of detail. So that was my first foray into dry point. And I've been doing it, that was in January of 2018. And I've been doing it pretty much exclusively ever since. I love it. I love the detail you can get with dry point. And the watercolor came later. That came about a year later. But now I think the watercolor is my favorite part of it. Oh, I love it so much. I love it.
I started with watercolor. It's the first paint I ever tried.
Oh, isn't it wonderful?
Yeah, I just love it. And as much as I have gravitated towards acrylics,
yeah.
I still use a ton of watercolor techniques. Sometimes I start with watercolor. Like, there is something about flooding a field with a gradient of color that is a beautiful starting point.
Yeah. And I have to say, I came to watercolor in a very interesting way. And I think I use watercolor in an unusual way because I don't flood. I don't work wet on wet.
Really?
No, I work very, very dry with a ton of pigment and very small. And the reason I actually started doing watercolor with my prints because I at the time I was doing, I think they were like 1 by 1.5 inch, and acrylic dries really fast. And because I'm working on these super tiny with these brushes and things, the acrylic paint was actually drying on the brush before I could even get it out of the paper. So I thought, okay, I got to do watercolor, but I wanted that saturated pigment. And so I started working basically with just a tiny amount of water, but because my prints are so small, I can get a lot of color in a very small spot.
Sometimes I feel bad when I run these conversations because I ask questions that mean a lot to me, and so I'm gonna go on a rabbit hole. Have you tried wash? Sorry.
Oh no, I don't get to talk about my watercolor much. So and I realize that it is a little unorthodox the way I use it. So thank you for asking me.
I was going to ask you, have you used gouache or tried gouache instead?
I actually inadvertently was using gouache by mistake. And it's so opaque that it kind of freaked me out. So I had gouache and I had, excuse me, I had a brand called Peerless watercolor, which are watercolors on cards. And that is so transparent that it was so opposite. And that's what I was used to. So I just went back to that. But I would love to experiment more with gouache.
Yeah, I went through a gouache phase.
Yeah.
I like how smooth.
Yeah.
I love the feeling of it, but I do so much layering with clear gesso and matte medium and so much wet and stuff that I can't. I need things to dry and be permanent. So I building. So I have a bunch of gouache sets that I'm like, maybe we'll see.
Yeah. Well, and you never know when it's going to call, your work for some reason is going to call for that gouache, right? I think that's so exciting.
Isn't that why we hoard art supplies?
Yes, because you never know when you're going to need it. every artist, I've always said this, I think, and I'm sure I'm not the first one by a long shot to say it, but I feel like every artist is a collector.
Yeah.
Right? Like like when I was doing collage.
Oh yeah.
I mean, oof, I
Yep.
still have probably 40 drawers full of collage papers
There's a lot
because
of
I
that.
love them.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
I did write down why mini, why small.
Because that is my whole life.
Yeah.
I think, well, I started collecting stamps when I was 7.
Okay.
For Christmas of 1975, my parents got me a stamp set, and I was obsessed with it.
Yep.
Like, my heroes when I was a kid were FDR and Ernest Borgnine because they were stamp collectors. Nerd alert. So
I love that.
And
I'm a collector, so
yeah, so I just loved how tiny they were, and like all these little images that were so small, and I loved that. And I got a dollhouse when I was 10, and my sister and I played with that thing until we were into our teens, like, and that actually fueled her love of interior design. So she went a different way with it, and so that dollhouse really like fueled many passions for the two of us. I'm also an interior design fanatic, mainly because I just collect artwork. There's a wall behind me that's all local artists.
Oh, cool.
And actually over in my kitchen area here too. Let me see. Where's that wall? Oh, I don't know where it is.
Everything's reversed, right?
Yeah, and I can't find it. But that's all local art too. And so that's like the main part of my interior design. But yeah, the mini has followed me through my life. And then in the pandemic, this might take us down a rabbit hole if that's all right. So absolutely. Speaking of mini, during the pandemic, so I subscribe, just a little backstory. I subscribed to this really cool Canadian magazine called Uppercase. Have you guys heard of it? Okay. It's Rachel, I think you would love it. I highly suggest checking it out because she does all kinds of artists. Her name is Janine Van Gool. She's the editor and basically does everything herself in Calgary. It's been out since like 2009, I think. And I've been a subscriber since like 2010, right around the time I became a full-time artist. But she started basically her own Facebook for Uppercase subscribers. And on that Uppercase magazine social media site, I met this woman named Elaine Luther. And Elaine is much like Frank Juarez, who you interviewed a couple months ago, who is a connector. She seems to know everyone and loves talking about things she loves to do and get people excited about new and fun things. And she's also a doer. So she decided during the pandemic, she had seen all of these little miniature art galleries, right, that people were doing in the UK in dioramas or their old doll houses from when they were growing up. Because nobody could go to art galleries, they were creating new art galleries and they were having artists do teeny tiny work in these galleries. Well, I found out about this and I was like, I felt so seen, right? As the kids say. And so I contacted Elaine and I said, I just put it out there because I thought I've got nothing to lose here. And I really got to know her. And I was her first artist in one of her dioramas. And since then, we've developed a friendship. And I have actually inspired one of my friends to do their own tiny art gallery. She lives in Neenah. And so she has her own. And it's been such an incredible experience. These last 3.5 years has just been phenomenal. And because I know Elaine, and because Elaine is Elaine, she contacted the Garrett Museum of Art in Garrett, Indiana, which is really near Fort Wayne. And I have the whole second floor of this gallery for my own miniature show. And then in the first floor of the gallery is all like all different artists with their own dioramas. But on the second floor, I will have 365 prints because I'm doing one a day every day this year of the things that I ate. And I don't even know what day today is. I think it's like day 310 or something like that. So I'm nearing the end. Thank heavens, because it's getting to be a bit much. But when it's done, I'll have, like the walls will be lined with my art. And there is no way I would have ever gotten this show had I not met her. I mean, it has been just an incredible experience. So the mini just keeps following me. And when I finally realized that I needed to follow the things that meant something to me, pardon the swear, but like the rest of the world be damned. That's when my world opened up. They always say, you should do the art you want to do, not what you think will sell or what you think other people want. And that is what I started doing. And holy smokes, when I realized that I was kind of meant to work, not to sound like I was meant to this destiny. No, but like I really love working small. And I was doing 2-foot square ones and I was getting into shows and stuff, but it just really didn't sing for me, like it wasn't my jam. Yep. And why do work if it's going to be like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore, right? So the working small, I just love it so much.
To circle back and add something, you know this because we were just chatting, but I had a studio visit from a couple of gallery owners here this weekend in my studio, and I said almost the same thing. And I said, for the first time in my life, I'm not making anything for anybody else.
Love it.
Honest, I don't care what anybody thinks about it.
Yes, but you will and have already inspired people.
Yep.
You might never know.
Exactly.
Right? Like Rachel, you too. Like I see the press that was it your dad who made it for you? Okay.
Yes.
Amazing. And you never know who you've inspired. Same with you, Carrie.
Mm-hmm.
Like I look at your color in your pieces and oh my gosh, like I don't work like that. But I've always wanted to add more color. So like seeing your work, it's like, oh, just like it's so vibrant and fabulous and fun. It's just yeah.
And I love that. Like I could tell you all the rules about color and composition and value and like all of those things.
Yeah.
And that's great. I am so thankful for my formal education. But that's not what is fulfilling me. Like when I come home after a long day of work, and my work is very structured and organized and very planned, right? My days are very planned. They're very organized. That when I come home and I want to be in the studio, I'm going to do what fills my cup. I'm going to do what resonates with me.
Absolutely.
And what feels good. And that's
right.
It's authentic, right? That's
absolutely.
And that's, I feel like I've had this conversation every day lately about authenticity and how, starting last week, we had a residency meeting, which Rachel attended, and we ended up, authenticity is so important, and why be anybody else?
That's right. Speaking of authenticity, during the pandemic also, I finally got connected with this woman whose art I had admired. She's a collage artist in Milwaukee or Shorewood area. And I had admired her work for years. And I had emailed her and told her how much I loved her work and stuff. During the pandemic, because she was going as cuckoo as the rest of us, she decided to start doing a podcast called Authentic Obsessions. And she asked me to be on it. And it's been so... I highly recommend it. If you just Google Authentic Obsessions podcast, you'll find it. Her name is Margaret Petrie or Petrie. Petrie's around here. Sorry. It's Margaret Petrie. And she has interviewed the most amazing people, some of whom I've actually gotten to know and befriended. And that has been the most incredible experience too. Even people not in Wisconsin. Just amazing artists who are so different, working with things I never would have imagined And they all talk about how they came to their journey in an authentic way. And it seems like every artist has, I think every artist who starts out right is thinking about, like, they're either copying someone else or their style, but not copying, but you know what I mean? Like, drawing from someone else's style, right? And trying to figure out their own way of doing it, or like their own style or their own vibe or whatever. So you are going to be thinking, okay, is this good? First of all, is it going to resonate with people? Am I going to attract people to my work? Because I think you're always going to ask that, right? But then as you get into it more and you're starting to work more, that's when you're talking about, okay, is it for me or is it for somebody else?
Yep.
I was fully into my art career when I actually decided I don't care what anyone else thinks anymore. I was probably like half my art career ago, probably like 7 years ago, when I finally said, no, I'm done. Like, I guess if it sells, it sells. Because that's, it's important to me, but because it is literally my career, but that's actually when it took off the most. So it is true. You've got to be authentic to yourself, because everyone else, like you said, everyone else is taken. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I also think you're touching on a really great point, and that is relationship building and networking, and putting yourself out there. And as I hear you talk about experiences and opportunities you've had, it's come back to putting yourself out there, reaching out to people, building those connections. So
and I guess, I think, well, my grandma always said that our family, the women in our family, are all late bloomers. And she was 100% right, because I am the only one who finished college on time. Both my grandma and my mom were in their 40s when they got their degrees. Raised kids first and then went back, right? I mean, started out and then left and then went back. And it's never, being in my late 30s when I started this, and actually 41 when I became a full-time artist, has been wonderful, because 41 is around the time you start caring, or you stop caring what other people think about anything, really. You've lived long enough and you're like, I don't really care if I'm popular anymore or whatever. It just doesn't matter. And that has served me well, because putting myself out there at 22 would have been absolutely terrifying. There's no way I would have done it. I would have been very self-conscious, and I would have had too much self-doubt. At 44, who cares?
Yep. But you have the loop, right?
And the older I get, so I'm 55 now, and it just keeps getting better and better, because I just really don't care anymore. I mean, I care very deeply about my work, and I care about, and I love meeting new people. So I am very lucky to be an extrovert in that way, because I love going to receptions, and I love meeting new people. And I love meeting new artists, especially because when we're all in the same boat and everybody kind of gets what your day's like, even though we might have completely different days, that's so awesome. So the networking part has been amazing. And it's so funny, because as I was looking through the list of everyone you're interviewing this year, I'm like, know them. we were talking about Christina Turner, who you interviewed last month, and Frank. And coming up, I can't remember off the top of my head who you have, but I think I know nearly everyone on your list. Because we are Fond du Lac is also extremely awesome, because I am literally 50 miles from everywhere. Like, Madison is his own thing. It's so weird. I don't know very many people. Yeah, I don't know many people who have busted into that market because of the school, I think, probably.
You're right.
But I am an hour from Milwaukee, half hour from Sheboygan, and 45 minutes from the Fox Cities, and an hour and 10 from Green Bay, my hometown. And I love it all. And unfortunately, you guys in like Appleton and stuff, there is no good way to get to the lakeshore, because I also do a lot of work with Two Rivers and Manitowoc in that area. Easy for me, much harder for people in the Lakeshore. So I feel like Fond du Lac has also, just my proximity to everything has helped me a great deal. Get to know so many people.
You can hop in the car and just show up at all the fun events and everything.
And I do. It was such a bummer when the pandemic happened. I mean, really great for studio time. And I actually kind of missed that aspect of the pandemic because once everything was open again, I was off and running again with my classes and all that kind of stuff. But I really miss seeing people. That was really hard. But we did do some virtual events and stuff. I had a virtual class where we ran over the press that we used was my car.
Cool.
That was super fun, you know, so we made it work, right? You know, but it was just, the connections are everything. It really is.
On that note, so when your name was kind of brought to me, so I do some kind of brainstorming with my team and everything, and I'm like, you know, here's some people I'm thinking about, or here's some people I've noticed, or names I've heard. And one woman said to me, Mel, because have you seen her newsletter, which I just subscribed to today. Sorry.
Oh, and I saw that. Thank you so much. It's so
But
nice.
the reason your newsletter was brought up to me was, did you know, not only does she do her newsletter, but she also features another artist in her newsletter every single time. And that was like, this woman's awesome. Look at her featuring other artists and that kind of networking and relationship building. What a cool way to do that.
Thank you. So I have to give all credit to my friend Dana. So Dana and his wife Helen are incredible people. Dana is the head of North company, like an imaging and networking company called North for Now, and he helps artists with newsletters. So I hired him to help me with mine. And this, oh my gosh, wait, what day is it? I think on the 17th of November was my 4-year anniversary of the newsletter. So I've put out over 200 of my newsletter, which is awesome.
Incredible. That's so many artists.
That's 200 artists. Yeah.
Oh,
Rachel's been one of them.
very cool.
Yes. And because I love her work. So what I do is I never tell the person that I'm going to feature them. Oh, anyway, sorry. Let me get back to Dana. So he told me that if you're going to do something like a newsletter or something, you have to give back in some way. So I really thought hard about how can I give back? Because I told him I don't need this to be all about me. I would bore myself to death. And I don't think I would have the following I have. I want to include people on my newsletter. I want to have content that resonates, not just like, here's where I'll be, everybody, you know. Who cares, right? I mean, sure, that's nice if people like it, but who doesn't love seeing their name?
Yeah.
Like, or they open up the newsletter and you're like, oh my God, it's me. And I've had people do that for me, right? I've had so many, just like a mention on Instagram out of the blue, and somebody, and that makes my day. So I thought, well, if I can make somebody's day, and I have 249 no, actually you're 250, Carrie.
Perfect.
You put me over the 250 mark.
Love that.
And I love, and I have a great open rate. Like I have like a 60% open rate, which is,
that's high. Yeah.
but I think it's because sure, I've got my Where's Mel segment in the bottom, but it's all about other people first. And, you know, like I do a meme of the week that's usually humorous, and I do like an art news of the month or whatever. But I really like, I just want to include other people. It's all about the inclusion, right? I mean, that's how I feel about it.
What a way to like bring joy to a boring email inbox too, you know?
Well, and I mean, I want people to be inspired by all of 200 artists. These are all our area too, by the way. And most of the people I have either met in person or I know because they know somebody I know. These are all Wisconsin artists. Not maybe, okay, so one of them was a Wisconsin artist, moved to the UP. It counts. They're still
totally counts. Yeah.
But no, I'm not going to go out of our area because I want to feature. We are flyover country for most artist things, and we shouldn't be.
Oh.
So if I've got subscribers in France, even because this one woman who's awesome follows me, and half the year she lives in France, and she still subscribes. I mean, I don't check to see who opens. I don't, that's your business. But like, if she's intrigued by Wisconsin artists, I feel,
Yeah.
we're as good as anybody else, right? Is what I'm trying to say. So why not highlight the people I know?
Yeah.
I don't, everybody, I'm not going to highlight some New York artist that has no connection with our area, right? And if I can get a Wisconsin artist to see another Wisconsin artist going, oh, I've heard her name before or their name before, great, awesome.
Yep. Or, hey, I'm really inspired by what they do. I should reach out. Or, oh, our works are kind of similar. We should chat. That's the kind of thing that, if I can make any advice to anybody watching this, is like, reach out to artists. They love that.
Yeah.
We
And
love
I'll tell you what, like most people, when I tag their name in a post, will actually say to me, oh my gosh, Mel, that was so nice. I don't expect it. And if you don't, that's totally cool. Because maybe you didn't see it or whatever. It doesn't matter to me. But I feel like if I can get two artists to meet because of this newsletter, my work is done. Because that would make me so happy.
For sure.
Yeah, I love it.
It feels so authentically you.
I appreciate that.
I have a few other notes of things I've noticed that you do. So maybe you want to pick what to talk about. Do you want to talk about commissions or markets? Or I saw that you did a residency in Minnesota.
Oh,
Okay.
I would love to ask about how you pick shows you want to be a part of outside of the local area, because I see you're in so many. I'm like, but how do you pick?
Okay.
That's a great question.
Great. I'm going to answer that question, Carrie, if that's all right.
Go for it.
Okay.
I actually have the same question right here.
Okay.
To apply to. So I'm going to cross it off because Rachel got to it first.
So I see calls for art because, I'm in a bunch of different groups and that kind of thing on Facebook and Instagram. But I'm really, honestly, I think a lot of artists feel this way too. I'm really drifting more toward Instagram now because of the visual aspect of it. And also, I really hate that we can't do links to things, but I have definitely met more artists on Instagram than Facebook. So I'm seeing all these calls for art on Facebook, or somebody will mention it in a post or something, and I'll try it. But I also see so many calls for art in our area. I mainly do our area, Rachel, because number one, I love the fact that I can go to the receptions and stuff. That's important to me. I have been in a couple shows in Chicago, and I loved it. For a couple of years, I was part of the Chicago Printmakers collaboration, which was incredible. I don't know how Deborah Maris later found me. She asked me to be a part of it, and she is like a powerhouse, amazing woman. I don't know if it was my work with the Hamilton Wood Type and Printing Museum in Two Rivers that caught her eye. I don't know, but that was unbelievable. And she asked me to do that, so I didn't even have to apply. But the stuff I apply to is almost all like every year. And here's another great thing about being 55. It doesn't matter anymore whether you get into these shows, but I apply every year. So the TMA Contemporary at the Trout, every year I apply. I do a lot of applications for the Art Garage if I know that I'm going to have time to do something specifically for it in Green Bay. What else? If anything in Sheboygan comes up, I try and do that because I love all of those people. They're amazing. And that's how I do my art fairs too. If I know the area, so like there's a one in Oshkosh that I love. Michelle Gurer is her name, and she does one in December called Handmade for the Holidays, and the other one is Fall in Love with Handmade in February. I do both because they're well run, and she's so nice, and it's just like a run like a Swiss watch. I love it. So I really try, and to get to your point here, sorry, just like rambling about things I love. I try and do shows that I know are going to be well run, that are professional, and that I actually might have a shot. Because so everyone's like, you should apply to the biennial, and I never have because I know my work, and I have been thinking about, okay, how can I make my teeny tiny little prints into something that's going to have an impact from a biennial standpoint, but I'm not there yet. And I don't want to apply because I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get in. So there is that aspect of it, right? Like I'm like, hey, I may have a shot at this. And then when I get in, I'm always shocked. I don't know any artist yet who's like, oh, of course I'm going to get in that one. Nobody I have ever talked to has ever said that in a million years. I think we're all shocked and delighted when we see that in our inbox. And I mean, I'm probably more used to the, we had 800 people. Sorry you didn't make it. Totally cool, right? It matters not to me. I'm glad I entered, and it's never going to be like because I've been a juror to things, and it's just that's how it goes. But I do I do I do choose things that I probably will be able to get into. Although if somebody's having a fundraiser, like I did apply to the New Impressions show at the Hamilton, which is all letterpress. I'm not a letterpress artist, but I did do a piece that was like a letterpress collage. It's a big fundraiser for them, so I did it. I knew I wasn't going to get in. That one I knew. If I would have gotten in, I would have plotzed. There is no way I was going to get in that one. But hey, it was a fundraiser and I'm happy to do it. So that's Rachel, that's mainly how I pick the things that I do. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but that's every artist. Chris Stile, who is an amazing printmaker and was a professor at UWGB for 35 years, she was the one who said, Mel, I don't get into stuff. And I was like, that's not true. And she's like, yeah, it is. There's plenty of things I don't get into. And when I heard her say that, somebody who like for many years I put on a pedestal and like, well, if Chris Stile isn't getting into stuff, who the hell am I? Right. So that was so kind of her to say that, because when your heroes are saying, yeah, no, I'm not getting into 100% of the things I enter. I'm like, all right, well then I need to just chillax here. And,
Chris is who kind of introduced me to juried shows. So I was undergrad at GB and I was interning at the Art Garage and doing a big fundraiser. And it was the first Art Meets Heart show before it went to the little canvases. And so I was the intern student doing the admin work on the juried show. And that was back when submissions were on CD.
Oh, yes.
Let me date up a little bit. And so loading each CD into the computer, putting the images and all the information into folders and getting them all ready, and then doing the slideshow for the jurors. That was, people need to understand it is a lot of work to jury a show.
Yes, it is.
Every single juror is so different in what they're looking for and what they think is good and what they think fits that organization, that if there was one juror for those 80 submissions and there was a different juror for those 80 submissions, the shows would be completely different.
Absolutely. Yes. And it helps to know that.
Yeah.
It really does. It helps to know that you are, like we were talking before you started recording, Carrie, you were literally at the whim of one or two people. And it's nothing personal, not at all. And boy, was that lovely to find out, right? Like when you do realize it has nothing to do with you or your work or the quality of your work.
Exactly.
It just, maybe they're thinking about a color scheme. Maybe they're thinking about, things that are maybe a little bit more edgy. Well, that's not me. I'm not an edgy artist.
Yep.
I don't do political things. I don't really have much to say in my, I just don't work that way. Yeah. And if that's the case, if that's what they're looking for, then I'm not going to be in that show. Exactly. And that has nothing to do with what I do for a living at all.
Oh, you're just not the right fit for what they're doing.
But it also has taught me to diversify in my in how I do things. That's why, I've had a website since the beginning, and I'll tell you, having a husband who is a website developer helps a ton. Because the first website I had, he made for me. And that was back in 2010. And I had that until, all of the people started coming out, like Wix and Square and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, so you really have to, if you're doing this full time or thinking about doing it full time, you have really got to diversify and make your own paths. For a while in Fond du Lac, very early on, like 2010, 2011, 2012, I was trying to find ways to get all of us artists work in different venues. So like I was asking different businesses to have like little shows of things and stuff like that. So, making my own way. Because I thought, well, if I'm not getting into these juried shows, I want to have my artwork hanging somewhere, right? And so, sure, I started small, but then, people start finding out who you are and things like that. And it's, I mean, not that I'm like this major player yet, or, whatever. It doesn't, that's not what I'm trying to say at all. But I mean, like, you can't help but get to know people when you put, like you said, you put yourself out there. Yeah.
I have two thoughts as you're speaking. I think, and Rachel has heard me say this way too many times lately, but who you are and the relationships you build are all part of your brand. And they all turn out to be how people speak about you.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, when I hear your name in a room, it's well regarded, right? Oh, you gotta meet Mel. She's doing amazing things. She's so wonderful to speak to. That's the kind of thing that follows you. And so to know, like, who you are as a person resonates with the people you interact with. And then that's just good for everybody, right? And so, I try to tell artists, like, you have to be really cognizant about your communication skills.
You're going to make me cry saying that. It's very important to me that I am well regarded, and that, I mean, I'm not like, everybody has to like me.
Right.
But I feel like, and I'm sure every artist knows this already, but who you are as a person matters more than who you are as an artist. And it's like any job. People who think that artists are sitting around wearing black, smoking Gauloise cigarettes, and speaking French have never been around an artist. It's a very hard job, and it can get you down if you let it, but it can also be the most uplifting thing you've ever done. And if you allow those rejections and bad vibes follow you, it's going to affect how you behave with other people. And you are going to get a reputation as being, I mean, your work may be absolutely incredible, but if you're not fun to work with, nobody's going to want to work with you. No. Life is hard enough as it is. And then if you're being, a nice word would be difficult. We are such a small area. That is going to travel like wildfire.
It really does.
It does.
If I have a really bad experience with somebody, then I don't recommend them for things.
Oh, Lord, no.
And I'm like, as much as I think somebody is like an amazing artist, if they were really hard to work with or really dropped the ball on me in a bad way, I wouldn't be able to stick my neck out for that person. Then my reputation's at stake. So,
and that absolutely, because if, oh gosh, I mean, like any other job, you have to keep your opinions in check. You have to show up, and you have to do the work. Yeah. Showing up, of course, for anything is 99% of the battle, right? So I feel like like any other job, you have to be on time. You have to be prepared. Yeah. And that is also going to follow you around. Like, if you bail on people or, no. So thank you for, that is so sweet of you to say that you've heard people say that nice things about me, because that means everything to me. It's very, very important that I am regarded highly in this, because it's my job, and I absolutely love it. So I would be heartbroken if somebody's like, ugh,
oh, what a dud.
I don't ever want to see her again.
Well, and to your point, this is my full-time job, right? I want to do this with people I enjoy hanging out with.
Yes.
This is the most fun thing I get to do is get to meet new artists and like hang out in my studio. This is my job, and this is what I get to do during the day. Obviously, I'm going to choose people that are like fun.
Well, and Carrie, you have been an absolute delight from start to finish on this. It's been so fun meeting you because, I mean, again, now I just met another fun artist. Rachel, I just love that I knew you already because that's so cool. But like now I know you, Carrie, and again, it's just more networking, and I absolutely love that. It also, I am shocked and delighted that my name came up when you asked me to do this back. Oh my gosh, when was it? Like back in June or something?
I was gonna say I usually plan in the spring, summer, and then
so because November seemed like an eternity away at that point. But I was like, what? Like somebody found me, and that still just blows my mind that anyone has ever heard of me.
It's such a compliment to hear that your name comes up in a room, right?
It's very, very nice. Very nice. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. It never gets old, and I will never be like, oh, well, of course. Don't you know who I am? You know? That's the way it goes.
I can't wait for the day that somebody does that to me, like.
Okay, so I have to tell you that happened to me once. It was not in an art form at all. It was I was working at a shop and somebody wanted something and I couldn't deliver. And they actually said to me, "Do you know who I am?" And I was like, I didn't. First of all, I had no idea who they were. And that is the truth. And so I said no, and then I made them even more mad. But I was like, who says that? Who brings that? Who bought that out? Wow. So no, if and this is never going to happen, and you'll know if something is very, very, very wrong if I ever bust that out. But like, I never expect anyone knows who I am ever. Like, that's not a thing. So when I'm still shocked when I hear my name. But we are a very small artist community. Like it's
when we are in person, I'm going to do that to you.
Do it.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Okay, we are nearing our hour. So Rachel and I see Julie joined us too. So if either of you have any questions, please go for it. My cat is attempting to climb my table right now, so I apologize if she joins us. You can
hear I hear her. That's adorable.
She's like, "Are you gonna feed me right now? It's 5 o'clock."
So my pups, I don't know if you've heard any snootsing in the background, but they've been like, because I also feed them at 5, and they are very annoyed.
She's right here on the table now. She just hopped right up here. There she is.
Oh,
you can see her on the edge there.
Oh, there she is. Oh.
This is her house. I just live here. Yeah.
Yes, I absolutely know that.
Do you have any last tips, words of wisdom, thing to end on? Anything you want to share with people, or any questions from our audience here?
So I will just end with this, and we can talk about what that means or whatever in the last 7 minutes. But please don't give up, anybody. I know it's hard. It's really hard. I will relay a short story. In 2013, I almost gave up because I don't know. It was. I mean, it's very hard starting out, and my work wasn't looking the way I wanted it to. I didn't quite know where I was going to go with it, and I was like in a bunch of different areas, like things I wanted to try, but I didn't really know how to go about it, and that summer was awful. I basically sat on the couch with our old pup Dudley and watched MeTV that whole summer because what I should have done, of course, is gone in the studio and tried some stuff, but I was so discouraged, and I really thought, I kind of missed having someone telling me what to do. Also, that's another thing they don't tell you as a full-time artist is that you do everything.
And it can be really isolating.
I missed having a boss.
Yeah.
That was nice. But that was 10 years ago. And I was thinking about that this summer, like, oh my gosh, that was 10 years ago. In a way, it feels like 20 years ago. And in a way, it feels like it happened last year. But I'm so glad I didn't give up. because I know I would regret it. Like if I were in I'm not going to say a real job because what I do is more real than anything I've ever done. But like if I had a 9 to 5 again, I would be probably miserable and just missing this artist life that I do. And really, honestly, all the things we talked about today, put yourself out there, is so important. It's so important. And I know you are so vulnerable when you do it. It's so hard being so vulnerable. But I'll tell you, sure, you might run into some jerks, but you're not going to run into many. If you said, hi, my name is blah, blah, blah. And could you just tell me more about like your gallery or everyone will answer you. Even if you don't get in, you've gotten it. You talked with somebody, right? And they may direct you like, oh, well, I don't really have any openings right now, but ooh, try this place. And it may lead you down your right path, right? It's just, gosh, I didn't even get into the gallery things. I mean, I literally could have talked to you guys because I'm a talker. I'm so sorry. But like, there's just so many things you can do. And brainstorm and think about things that maybe are far-fetched, but could absolutely work for you. And then find your tribe, right? Find the people who are doing the things you're doing and hang out with them. Go to receptions. I have been to so many, some receptions are whack in their attendance. I mean, it's just so fun because there's 300 people there. But then there's other ones like solo exhibits. So maybe people don't know who the person is. Go to all of them. Meet new people because I will tell you right now, there is like literally 2 degrees of separation between you and any other artist in our area. They will know 100 people that you know. It's so wild. And start following people on Instagram if that's where you start, right? Just, see who your artist friends are liking, who, especially in the area. And just, honestly, there's nothing wrong with thinking local and keeping it local. I do most of my work local and I love it. I do not have pie in the sky things about like going to New York Gallery. That does not interest me in the slightest. If it does you, then find out a way to do it. But I love being local. I love being able to travel to different places and stuff. And yeah, that all stems from don't give up. Just find ways that make it work for you. Because it will. I mean, if you keep at it, if you want this, you really want it and you keep at it, it'll work for you. It might take a while, but it'll work for you. I firmly believe that.
I feel like that was such an inspirational note to end on.
Thank you. This isn't just something that I, read in Rick Rubin's book. No, I really believe that. It comes from the heart.
I always try to tell people like, if you're scared to just put yourself out there, leverage that 2 degrees of separation.
Absolutely.
And I'll be the first person to volunteer to do that. I met with a woman who just started working with Broadway Inc. in Green Bay. Oh. And she's going to be their new person in charge of diversity and helping bring diversity into the district.
Ray.
Somebody sent her to me, and I had a wonderful conversation with her, and I said, give me like 2 days, and I will have a list of people, and I will do all the email introductions for awesome. You and pair you up with people. And I'll tell you, artists love to do that.
Absolutely. Yes. And I hooray for inclusivity and diversity. That is so sorely needed. And every artist out there needs to be heard and seen. I love it. Everybody.
All lift each other up, right?
And can we just say a big giant hooray for nonprofit arts communities, because you are the connectors of us. And I don't know where I'd be without you guys, because you're the connectors of our whole area. So I appreciate all of you so much. You're great.
Thank you. And I sing that to every artist I know, is like, we need nonprofits in this area.
Yes.
Because we don't have arts that are visible. And it's so important to feel seen and heard and be out there and be a part of the community and have a place. So
100%, Carrie. You got it.
well, the clock just flipped over to 5 o'clock, and I love to keep us on a very tight time because I thank you for being here for a whole hour with me, actually more than that. I want to be respectful of your time, and I so appreciate this. This is really inspiring and a really fun way to end my day. So.
I knew it would be amazing, but it was even more amazing than I thought it would be. So thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Rachel. This was wonderful, and I so appreciate the opportunity. It was fantastic.
I look forward to meeting you in person.
Yeah, me too. All right, let's make that happen.
Absolutely. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.